Hey there, Big Yard Nation. Good to be with you. I'm your host, Darryl Scotti, and today we're joined by Francine Greene. Francine is the dynamic owner of Agoura Borealis Recording Studio, formerly Glen Campbell Studio, here in Agoura Hills, California. At Agoura Borealis, Francine is dedicated to connecting artists with top engineers and supporting music classes for adults with special needs. How great is that? Before diving into the music industry, Francine enjoyed a successful 17-year career as a paralegal in personal injury, criminal, family, and federal law. We're honored to have her on the show. I can't tell you how excited I am to share her story. Let's check it out. Francine, so great to see you.
Great to see you, Darryl.
I love this place. And of course, we were here doing some work now, just a few months ago. And so we're back here and we're recording our season 3. And so we're here with Larry. Larry is a longtime friend of mine, producer and big part of Big Yard Nation. And Larry, it's good to see you, man.
To you, Darryl.
Okay, we're going to just have a great time here. This studio, I love the studio and I love the story behind it. But before we get into that, this was Glen Campbell's studio that he had in his home. This was kind of his man cave, and he would come here before tour or after tour. And this was his room that was built for him, and he kept his wardrobe upstairs. So this was kind of his getaway, and before he passed away. And now all of it, everything that was here, and his guitars are all in Nashville in a museum. So, but before we get into some of that stuff, Larry, tell us how this room got built and who built it.
This room was designed by a gentleman named Arthur Kelm. Brilliant man. A lot of people in Los Angeles know of him and utilize his designs. So when Glen Campbell bought this house, he had a 3-car garage and he's going to build a real studio. He called Arthur right away. And he came in, took the measurements, designed it just for this place to Glen's specs and his specialty, and it came out beautiful.
And so this studio incorporates all of the technology that was available at the and so didn't he also design for
Capitol Records?
Absolutely. The Capitol Records building. So
correct.
He built all those studios.
He built a few of those rooms, and he is renowned in Los Angeles, and a lot of people. He's in demand, and he's very, very amazing person. Yeah.
So I suppose when Glen got him on the other line, and Glen asked him to come down, he was like, "What can I do? Let's go have some fun."
Yeah, that's right.
How did you meet Glen first, Francine? You've got a little bit of history with Glen.
I was living in Malibu, and I was at my front gate. I lived in a gated community, and there was somebody standing at my front gate. So I walked over to see who it was, and there was a man standing there with a mop in his hand. And I said, "Hello." And he said, "Hi, I'm Glen." And I said, "Oh, hi, Glen, I'm Francine." And he goes, I think I'm going to call you Fanny." And I said, "Well, okay, that's fine." He said, "I'm your new neighbor."
Did you know it was Glen or recognize him or anything like that?
Not right away.
Well, he had a mop in his hand.
He had a mop in his hand, and I knew I was getting new neighbors, and I knew that it was going to be Glen Campbell, but I didn't expect Glen to be the one standing there with the mop in his hand. He walked across the street, and then I decided to take some water over to the workers because they were unloading several large moving trucks. So I went over and I met Kim, his wife, and that was the beginning of a really nice relationship. And, they were neighbors, and we spent many Christmases together, a few of the neighbors, and he was always very available to everybody. He'd like to sing, and he wanted us to know his kids. And it was lovely. He and I spoke on the phone many times too, just over our barking dogs. And he stayed for several years, and it was fun because I would see him going up the street with his golf clubs on his way to meet Johnny Mathis, who he played golf with every Friday.
Look at me.
And from what I understand is that they sang from the whole 18 holes every Friday.
Oh, I bet.
And I wish I could have been there, but...
Wouldn't you like to have been a fly on that golf bag?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So this goes back a ways, and so at that time there was no thought of ever this studio and whatnot, and so then Glen passes away, and give us just a kind of short... How did you come to buy this? Was it an offer? Did you see it on the market?
It was really magical because my husband, Harold, and I decided to scale down. We had a 2-acre property. It was a big house. It was like time to move on. And so one day I get a call from Kim Campbell saying, you know, I really miss Malibu. And I said, Kim, I'm not in Malibu anymore. I just sold my house and I'm in Agoura Hills looking for a new place.
Wow.
And she said,
Amazing.
you know, I have a place. She says, but it probably, she said, no, you wouldn't like it. And I says, well, what is it? She says, well, it was the studio and my son is living there and Glen, sadly, had just passed away. And she said, I said, okay, let me go take a look. We came here to the studio, my husband and I, and looked around and thought, this is sort of like emotional for me. And so the fear was that somebody would buy the house and tear this down. All of Glen's guitars were in here, his platinum records were on the wall, the piano was here. The vibration was huge. We decided we were going to put an offer on the house. And it was looking good for us. And we thought, well, you know, the house will be small and it's just going to be the two of us. We'll accommodate. So Kim calls me later and says, it isn't going to work. She said, my son lives there and he just lost the house. He'll lose the house. He will also lose the studio and he just lost his father. She said it might be too much for him. I thought about it for a while and then I said, you know, Kim, let us buy the house and we'll keep Cal. He can continue to run the studio and we'll just let him stay.
Wow.
That's a beautiful story.
And you saw him grow up.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story.
So we bought the house and sadly, 4 weeks later, the Woolsey fires hit. We were evacuated and we were gone for probably 11 days. It was lucky for us because our street in Malibu completely burned down. So we were.
But you were already gone by then, right?
We were gone. And so we purchased the house. Cal was here. And, you know, I'd see him in here. He would have his clients come in. I'd see him in the kitchen. And it was cute because, you know, we were all comfortable together. And with the fire, after the fire, we knew that we had to make changes because there was a lot of smoke damage. So one night we got all of Glen's stuff, all of his awards and trophies and guitars, and loaded them up on a big moving van in the middle of the night and added Cal to it, and they went off to Nashville. And so then this became a shelter for friends who had lost their homes.
Wow.
And
incredible.
And so it was like for the next 3 months, this was, you know, like we wanted to live alone, and it ended up we were living with several people. But
well, it's a beautiful story, and I'm sure that there's so much more to it. And I'm just excited to kind of find out how you and Larry met. Now, Larry and I go back a long, and thank you for that, Francine. Larry and I go back a long time. In fact, he was just a young, 17 years old, a prodigy when we met, and I managed him in a band. And he ended up coming to Los Angeles, and his career just blew up. And Larry, our fans and our viewers have gotten to know you since season 2. You've had an incredible career, man. You're an A-lister, and you've worked with so many people. Jeff Beck, Al Jarreau. You're a bass player on the touring Pablo Cruz band since 2013. Corey's coming in to the yard this year. I think Corey's going to be here later today or tomorrow. And so all of this happened, and now Francine's got the studio, and this, you know, the fire, and then she moves out of Malibu, and, you know, she met him by kismet years earlier, and now she's got the house. And how then did you become her, or how did you guys get this thing? I'm curious. How did it work out?
Well, basically, there's a friend of ours named Scott Moyer, and he knew Francine. Scott and I became friends, and we chat, and we would visit the clubs and see all the music going on around town.
I've heard you talk about Scott.
Yeah. So he told me about this place and that Francine's buying it and this and that. And I was going, wow. And he goes, maybe it's an opportunity that we could start something here. So he said, you got to meet her and Harold. And I came over here.
Wow.
And we hit it off immediately.
So it's just out of the blue. You just said, I'm going to go over.
Yeah, she wanted someone that
Did you have her number or call her? Or?
Well, no, Scott arranged, got us together, and I came over. Basically, she wanted someone that could run the studio. And Scott knows I have my studio at my house, and I've been making albums out of there. And this is like another upgrade, obviously, because this is just an incredible room. I could never do drums or any of these things.
Now, the air conditioning is on right now. I don't even hear it.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a well-engineered room.
Absolutely. And Francine said, could you build the room back up? And can we start making music in here? And I went, it would be an honor for me to
like
be a part of it.
I couldn't start that.
It was a godsend, yes. It was evolution of my music, because I've been playing and touring a lot, got a lot of that, out of my system in a way, and I wanted to really start producing, and she comes, would you like to come and produce records? And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And we put the studio together. I made the list of equipment. We got the equipment.
Right.
And Corey donated the drums from Pablo Cruz. He just had them in his garage. He came over here and said, you need these drums. And Steve Price donated the mics. So we're just going, okay, we have a killer drum sound, and that's the hardest thing ever to get. So we got that right away. And then we got the right equipment, got the mics, got everything just as we needed.
So the control room is sitting over there.
It's over there.
To give you a perspective, there's an ISO booth over here. And then there's Glen's vocal ISO booth over here.
Yes.
That I recorded and you produced for me. 2 or 3 of the songs on the new record that we're doing, Poets and Heroes.
That's right.
It's going to be out later this year. So that I felt Glen's chemistry in here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt his presence, and it was such an honor.
And we work as a team. We bring things in. Ellen Brockovich wants to come in and record. I'm like, what? She goes, Larry, can you be here? And I got, different people that she's bringing in. I go, I have a guy. So we started real organically, and then she started doing, kind of putting the word out, and people were calling, and we've done a lot of different records in there. And before even a few people were in here, we first session we did was John Molo from Bruce Hornsby's band, great drummer, and who else?
And these guys, the people that you brought in, of course, I knew some of the history when I came in and met you, Francine. Do a lot of these guys that are coming in know this was?
They all love it. Are you kidding?
So they knew about Agoura Borealis, yeah?
Yeah, and they let us keep the name. That was cool about, right?
That was great.
Cal and Cam said, you don't have to change the name. And it's the greatest name ever of a studio.
Yeah, it is. It truly
is.
Well, what drives you guys? I mean, this is a new changed era. Digital music has changed everything. Billie Eilish records her platinum record from her apartment, her first apartment. Hoosier records he went 4 triple platinum, 4 platinum on that first record from his father's attic, and so the industry has really changed, but you're holding on to the values of what it's like to come into a live room with ISO booths and look through a window into the control room.
And she knows music. She knows anything I'm doing in here. She comes in and she listens. She goes, I really like that. And I can tell when we're working and we need to still go extra mile to get it to a place, and then I'll play it for her again. She'll go, there.
That's what she did with Poets and Heroes.
She's had great ears for what sounds great. She's not going to let anything mediocre and I trust her. She'll just out of nowhere. And I always go, you're right. I wouldn't have thought of that. Yeah. She's very musical.
Well, she's got a great spirit about her. So she's very intuitive. Am I right?
Yes.
So then music drives you. And of course, I would say Glen's spirit, drives you, right? And to live now in this home and to have this studio down here in Larry, it must be an incredible privilege and an honor.
We have a good time, don't we?
It's great.
We have the best time. We work so good together. We've never had a fight.
No, we haven't had a fight.
Not one.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could start one today.
Yeah. Let's drama for the camera. No, but we get it, and we just love that we can. An artist can come in with a guitar and a song, and when they leave here with the biggest smile on their face because we produce something that they can release into the world. It's like that's all we want is see people smiling. She does some other things here. She should tell them about the special needs kids that was your whole thing.
Oh yeah, I was interested in that. And I mentioned that earlier in your introduction. Tell us a little bit about that.
This is her rodeo, baby.
We had a band call me wanting to rent rehearsal space. So they came in, and I normally don't allow people to come in to do rehearsals, but I made an exception. And when they came in, the owner of the band said, we could do something in here. And I said, oh, well, okay, like what? She says, well, I own a foundation for adults with special needs. And she said, maybe we could have a class. And so I said, well, we could. We talked a while, and I said, well, let's try. Let's see what happens.
So what do you do in this class when they come in?
Well, they're actually learning music theory.
Wow.
Yeah, we have a class made up of 10 or 12 students, and they have autism, different levels of autism, Down syndrome, and other diagnoses that I'm not familiar with. But when they first came in, this is the best part. When they first came in, they were like wild donkeys. They were everywhere.
Yeah.
They were, and Larry had an experience with them, throwing themselves on the floor and kicking their feet. They come in now, after a year.
Calm.
They're calm. They sit down.
Excited.
They know their music. They're probably better musicians than a lot of the other musicians that come in here. They're so teachable, and then also each one of them has an aide. So they're supervised.
Oh, I see.
So there's a student and an aide.
Incredible.
And that come in here. Boy, it
Didn't
must
you
be
say,
a full room.
Yeah, I think you said some of them were nonverbal when they first got here.
This is the best part.
And this is what the therapy of music tell them.
There's a psyche of music called the Doctrine of Ethos, which says that ever since Ravel performed the Bolero and there was a riot back in the 1800s, and so the doctrine of ethos is a long-time doctrine that says that music has an effect on the soul. Freddie Ravel is coming in tomorrow to talk a little bit about what he does, and he's a Grammy award-winning musician, musical director, but he tours around the world talking about music and does it as a keynote speaker.
That's right.
And so you're seeing some of that as they come into it. Tell me a little bit about some of the and I know how excited and proud you are of that, but what are some of the challenges in that? We talked about them settling in and getting and is it keeping them here and working around that so you can keep that in your schedule? And let's talk about some of the challenges that we could talk about. And if you're in Los Angeles and you're watching this interview, go online to Agoura Borealis and reach out to Francine. Come in and experience what it's like. If you're in your bedroom working on your DAW, come in and experience what it's like to be in this incredible little studio and record your music and get to work with Larry and Francine. It would be incredible. So tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you guys are facing.
The special needs group, there's really not much of a challenge anymore. I can say one thing for sure. It's total love. It's absolutely the best feeling because when they're here, you have to live in the present because things are unpredictable, but yet predictable because they've been coming for a year and a half now.
Wow.
And it's just warms your heart because they reach out in the purest way of giving love to you. And it's really the high point of my week.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Larry, as the chief engineer, thank you for that, Francine. As the chief engineer here, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in this new digital era?
Well, yeah, in the digital era, we've had to grow and change slowly over time. It was all analog, as we know, back in the day, and then the drum machine came along. So if you were a drummer, you better learn how to program. And then it went to computers. Everybody had their little, I had a Cubase program or something. It was really not very much, but you had to jump on board, and a lot of people just didn't understand another language really. And I just went, I have to get this together because I was recording on a little Porta Studio, a cassette, which had 4 tracks. So I was writing songs when we met when I was 17 years
on a
old.
Tascam. I had it sitting in my studio.
Yeah, so I had this thing where I was recording my songs out of necessity because we couldn't afford to go into studio sometimes. But you were allowed us to go in the studio because you were our manager, and you funded, and we got some great recordings. But in the meantime, we were writing, and so it was out of necessity, and then all of a sudden, Logic and Pro Tools and these things. So I said, this is going to be a learning curve, but I'm jumping in. So got it going, figured it out. Started just slowly over time. You just have to put in the time, and you learn all the ins and outs, and you learn about the plugins and mastering and all these things. And so,
well, you're prolific at that, Larry. And,
I got good over time.
You are, and you're a great drum programmer. And my gosh, you're an incredible bass player, world class. And I think one of the great standouts of you too is your sense of vocal arrangement, and I love watching you work because you'll pick up a microphone right at the board and start laying down these multi-layer. We got Bob Kilpatrick coming in, who produced a record for me in 2005, and he's brilliant as that as well. And I can't wait for that to happen. Give me some of the career highlights, just briefly, because I want to get into a couple questions that I'm so excited about. But to wrap up the segment, give me a couple quick highlights, just one or two for both of you guys.
Let me tell you something. This studio is the highlight of my career right now.
Really?
And bringing me
of all the things you've done,
I've done a lot. It's been an incredible ride, but I'm evolving as a musician, producer, songwriter. The singing and the arranging, that's all getting better and better because I'm hearing more as I get older, which is great as far as arrangements. But having this place, it's allowed me to grow into a whole nother beast, which is, and I love it, people bringing in their songs. I'm recording a band in a couple weeks, and they got 3 songs, and they're starting to do some, making some noise out in the field, so they need a really good recording. And we're going to send them away with a record. We don't make demos here. So they're going to walk out of here and going, what just happened? And that's what the joy of we facilitate their dream. I've had my dreams come true, and my dreams are still coming true. And this is just an evolution of the journey. And I wouldn't have said I would end up here, but this is next. This is the next thing I want to do for forever. I'm so excited and have so much passion about engineering and producing now. It's amazing.
And you're good at it. Francine, what's it like to all of this to happen to you that we've talked about it, and then to have somebody like Larry, world-class musician, songwriter, vocalist, say something like that as you're sitting next to him? What's it feel like?
I feel very lucky.
You should see her. She puts on these big powwows and all these things. She knows how to produce, and she produced a song last week. She put all the musicians together. She has this thing that she doesn't know she's got in her, and that is the producer hat.
So what thank you for that, Larry. What does it feel like to have right now, to have him say something like that about how excited he is to be here in the studio?
It's kind of overwhelming.
We're a great team.
He doesn't usually spoil me like that.
I love it. We jokingly say at the end of a segment that it's now time for our slightly morbid part of the show. And I mean that in a very flip way, because one of the greatest questions, and if you've stuck around long enough and you get a prompt from us to stick around to the end for a question that you're not going to want to miss. I want to ask you, Francine, first, before I get to Larry, how do you want to be remembered?
I'm not going. Seriously.
Your spirit's going to live on forever.
Seriously.
This is just part of the tour.
This is a good question. And I've been asked this before, but it's like living 9 lives. Everybody is going to remember you differently. So let's say you're asked, what song would you like? What song would you like at your funeral? You could ask 20 different people. They're going to put a different song on you.
If they were asked to arrange that part of your service for you and say, what song do you think that it'd be 20 different
because you mean something different to everybody that you've met, you've had an encounter with. So how would I want to be remembered? I would want to be remembered the way that they experienced me.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's
such
beautiful.
a great, and because it's a beautiful answer. And I had no idea how you'd answer it. I am not at all surprised by, getting to know and see your spirit for what you are, and that Native American spirit that that thrives still to this day. I live in Scottsdale. I live in Cave Creek, and I live on an old tribal, and I felt it as soon as I bought the home and moved out there. I could feel the presence, and that's really how some of the songs on 54th Street, when I met Alex Chacon and how we recorded Carefree State of Mind, it really had that vibe, and I believe that it had a lot to do with the Native American Indian. Larry, and I've asked you this question before, but how do you want to be remembered?
Well, be remembered. Okay, I would say I would like to be remembered as, I've been in all these situations, and I want to be known as someone who was a team player, someone who came in, and I used to play baseball, so I know everybody on that team has to do what they're doing to win the game.
That's right.
So I've always felt that, and I brought that in to my music, and I like contributing. And sometimes not even taking credit. It doesn't matter. It's like what's the best good for the situation. If it's it's just suggesting if you're writing or if you have ideas for the band or any situation you're in. But also that I have a kind heart. I would like to be remembered for that.
And you do.
And I honor God, and He's my inspiration. Just gonna say that right now.
And to leave an incredible legacy to Matthew, your 21-year-old son right now.
Beautiful.
Larry, it is such a blessing and a privilege to have spent so many years with you, and for us to now come back together in this part of our career. We're truly blessed.
Truly.
We're going to wrap up this segment, and I hope that if you enjoyed this, let us know. Like it, subscribe to our channel, and tell a friend, because I believe that this segment here and this interview here in this studio with the spirit of Francine. Francine, you are incredible, and for you and Glen to come together before the fire and before Glen left the earth, and to carry this on. God bless you, and for what you're doing. And it's such a pleasure. And I've recorded music here. I've so enjoyed it. I'm going to record more music here, and this is one of my. For me, it's a highlight in my career too, and so
that's great.
So stick around. We've got some more stuff, great stuff coming up. Like us at Big Yard Nation on YouTube. Go to all of our socials at Big Yard Nation. Let us know if you like it and what you'd like to hear, and stay in touch with us. We've got a community that we're building. Thank you so much. We've had so many subscribers over this first year, and we owe a big thank you to all of you guys. So thank you for that. And that's it from the yard. God bless. We'll see you again soon. Peace. We're out.